Today on AI Applied, we don't talk a lot about hardware for the very obvious reason that there's not that much to talk about. But the truth is that hardware is going to be what's going to sort of get AI into the hands of a lot of people. I've been actually just, Jane, just by chance, I've been sort of like meeting with a bunch of people from Google lately, just kind of like just casually, and it's amazing how bullish they are on Google. Now you might kind of like assume that, but I'm starting to see what they mean. First of all, Gemini is an unbelievably powerful model, and now with the Pixel 10, which is what I really want to get your thoughts on. This is in everybody's hands, right? In the hands of I don't know how many people. It doesn't compare to the iPhone, but what it does sort of do is it can sort of start to drive behavior and adoption through the fact that people are going to have this tool on their phone, and it's just going to work better. And there's some really cool AI features on it. So as we're kicking off, again, I just want to remind you guys, because you can test Gemini, you can test Claude, you can test ChatGPT, AIbox.ai, Jaeden's company, allows you to have access to all the models for $19 a month. So again, I pay gobs of money for all my subscriptions. And what this does is not just the fact that it allows you to pay $20 a month, and it's 1000% worth it. I'm begging you to go there right now. But also the thing that I do, even after paying for all these different models, I'm always comparing model to model to model. And this allows you to do this right on the same screen. Compare an answer from ChatGPT to Claude to Gemini to Grok, et cetera, including images, everything else. Go check it out, AIbox.ai. You were the one telling me about the Pixel 10. I didn't really follow this news, and you were like, no, this is actually kind of cool. What was it? What were you sort of seeing about this news?
Okay, so I am actually pretty stoked about this because I was contemplating buying the Pixel 9 right before the 10 came out. And instead, of course, I got the latest brand new iPhone because, AT&T said they just give it to me for free. So I was like, whatever.
Shout out to AT&T.
But I'm sitting here with the newest iPhone thinking, oh man, this Google Pixel 10 looks pretty cool. Yeah, anyways, so I think there's a whole bunch of really cool AI features in here, and I think that they beat Apple to a bunch of them. But there are leaks about some interesting things that are happening in the iPhone 17. So we're going to talk about both of those on the podcast today, the Pixel 10 and the Apple iPhone 17, and some of the interesting new features. But I want to tell you some of the things I loved the most about the Pixel 10 is that, number one, I don't think they put a big deal. They didn't put a big they make a big deal about how thin it was compared to other past phones, which is something I appreciate. It's getting a little worn.
Yeah.
Okay. They have something called Gemini Live. Basically, it's like ChatGPT where you can do like the voice calls and stuff, but it's built into the phone. So it's kind of cool. Google's basically adding all of their AI features from Gemini in there. One in particular I thought was really useful is that you can take your phone and you can, if you're in a foreign country or you're reading something in another language, you can point your phone at, like, let's say a street sign or the ingredients list on the back of food, or you can point it at a menu in another language. And like through the video, it will live translate and change the text on there. So if you're pointing your phone at the menu, all of a sudden you're just seeing the English menu on your phone. To me, that is so freaking cool and so incredibly useful for like so many different things. So basically, I think they're really trying to get rid of all of the friction with languages. And they also have it with, they have a bunch of interesting things as well with actual calls. So they have voice translation for calls, which is crazy. They basically have this new thing called Magic Q. So they got a bunch of interesting things. They have a camera coach, voice translation for calls, which basically if you're in a call, it can translate the voice that you're talking to live. You guys are like in a phone call and you're going back and forth, translating someone in another language. Again, like really, really useful. And that's something I'm pretty excited about.
This is, and the thing is about this, Jaeden, a couple of things. This is not like, in beta. It's not research. Like, this is what's on your new phone, and it's just there. And Jaeden, the thing that is always amazing to me is that this technology exists. First of all, so if you haven't tried Gemini Live, or they used to call it, what they used to call it, sort of like with the, where you could sort of like point the camera at things and all that kind of stuff. Astra, right? They used to call it Astra. But the point is that this is on your phone now. And the fact that the underlying model keeps getting more and more powerful means that it's better and better and better. So when you hold it to a bookshelf, or something like the one I have in my office, it's actually going to read it better. It's going to give you better answers. Why? Because the underlying model, Gemini, is getting better and better. Jaeden, I guess the thing for me is that on one hand, I'm like, this is going to drive behavior. So what I do with AI Mindset, as you know, right? Like, I work with organizations, and we don't really talk about the tech. We talk about how the brain does like pattern prediction, automation, and why in all those cases it really slows adoption, which is why we're almost 3 years in and adoption is very slow. So we focus on like behavior, how to shift that behavior, all that kind of stuff. In this case, you would think that to a certain extent, if it's just on your phone, amazing, everybody's going to use it. However, ChatGPT's been on everybody's phone forever too. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's
Mhm.
not like people are sort of clicking on it and using it. Why? Because their behavior hasn't shifted to sort of get used to the fact that it does that. I am sure that the first people that are they're holding the camera down at a menu in Germany and seeing it translated, you're going to have the restaurant patrons gathered around that
Yeah.
person in stunned disbelief that this person has some Star Trek device from the future. This is possible now. So I guess what I'm thinking about, and this is what I talk to, because I get to do some stuff with Google. One of the things I talk to Google about around this stuff is, okay, so how do you push this? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you get people to change and actually use it? Because I think that they're doing it actually in a really smart way with AI overviews. I think it's still called AI overviews. I'm not sure, but it's like AI mode in Google search, which is it's now offering up the sort of the large language model response. So people who don't even care about AI are all of a sudden like, wait, what's this? This is pretty cool. So it's almost like pushing it in front of all those eyeballs. I think that's the way to do it rather than trying to convince people to come try a new thing. And
Yep.
I'm just wondering if these tools like, vision and everything like that, if Google is going to find a way to kind of like push that. So you're just on your phone and all of a sudden, it'll just sort of like pop up a notification being like, hey, I see that, from your geo, whatever, like you're in Paris, you need help translating. Do you know what I mean? I'm just wondering how
Yep.
people actually end up using it. Not that it exists, but how it changes behavior.
Yep. No, I think like you have to kind of have the aha moment and like that spark before you
Yep.
like are like, oh, I want to try this with everything, right? So I think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve. I for one have an experience last summer where I feel like this would have just been perfect. I was in France for the summer with my family, and we actually had some family that came and visited us. We were there for like 2 months, and we had some family and friends visited. We all went to this like traditional French restaurant. No one there spoke French except for me. And so we're all sitting around and everyone's like, well, Jaeden, like you're the only one that like speaks French. So like you just order for us. And I hate the pressure of having to order for everyone. Plus this menu is like traditional French food. So like, I'm going to be honest, half of the words I did not know what they meant because they were like, this isn't just
Yeah,
burgers
right,
and
right,
fries.
right.
This is the real deal. So anyways, after staring at the menu for like 10 minutes and not having a great understanding of what everything was on there, and the waiter's like, all right, you ready to order? I was like, yeah, actually, just you can pick whatever you think is the best for everyone. You could just pick for them. So the waiter's like, oh, okay, fine. And they went and like picked it. And we had all sorts of really creative, very traditional French food because of that. But maybe if I had this feature on my Google Pixel, I would have been a little bit braver and been able to just pull the order off myself. So, and maybe I wouldn't have even told my family. I would have just been like,
Right.
yeah, you know what?
You're the
This is what
man.
you guys are going to love.
You're so
Yeah,
good.
trust me. I
So
got you. I
impressive.
know French.
This is what it's all about. AI is all about impressing other people who don't know that you have that capability.
Exactly.
Jaden, it reminds me that I was flying back from Nepal. I guess it was earlier this year. Now I'm getting confused. This year or last year? Maybe it was last year. With Finn. Finn and I, my son Finn, who's 16, we went out and taught AI to nonprofits and to schools out in Kathmandu. And we were flying back, and I was sitting next to a guy who only spoke Arabic, and I mean literally only spoke Arabic, not a single word. And the stewardess was like, was like, hey, what would you like to eat or whatever? And he's just like looking at this and sort of like shaking his head. He just doesn't know. He doesn't know how to order. And I, big hero, sitting next to him, I'm like, hold on. And I pulled out ChatGPT. I said, hey, ask this and blah, blah, blah. And then I put it into voice and it translated between them. And people on the plane were like, what is this black magic happening right here? So it really is this moment where it can shift how people do everything. The question is, and again, ChatGPT has been able to do a lot more than this for the last couple of years. How do we get people actually using it? It's a real question, and I don't totally know. But I will say that if somebody's going to crack this, I think it's Google because they have all this integration. They have the phone. They have a ton of people with their phone. And Jaeden, I'm also wondering because you were talking about buying the iPhone. Is this where iPhone starts to lose a tiny bit of market share? Maybe not. Maybe not. But this feels something really, really practical, which is this phone is now an AI phone, and iPhone doesn't have that,
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. For the first time ever, I'm feeling like the Pixel, which was just like an okay phone for a long time, might be like really cutting edge because Google has invested so much into AI. And here's the way that I think Google is going to crush it with this phone. So there's all these really cool features, and we talked about some of them. You can like point your phone at the beach and get it to do some edits. You can basically talk to Gemini like on your Photos app and be like, hey, like remove the background. There's glare on the photo. Remove the glare. Like you just talk to it and it can like go and edit the photo. It could do all these like really cool things, right? I could talk your ear off about all the AI features. Oh, of course, the one where you're like literally talking on the phone and it's translating. The reason why I think all of these are impressive, and basically the place that I think this all goes, is actually the hardware itself. Because a lot of people are like, great, that's software. ChatGPT or another app could do that, and I can just put that on my iPhone. Why do I need the Google Pixel? Right? Like, who cares if it's Apple that made it? I'll just use the AI tools. I think the secret that is going to be a big unlock for Google with the Pixel is basically that with this new phone that they've launched, this is their first time really showing off their Tensor G5 processor. So this is
Mhm.
something that Google has built in-house. They have their own Tensor processing unit. It's a big upgrade from their last one. And what it allows to happen for the first time ever on this phone, and you can imagine as there's future phones in the phones coming down the line in the future, this is going to get more and more insane. But for the first time ever, you can actually run their newest Gemini Nano model directly on the phone. No internet needed. You're on the top
That's
of Mount Everest. This thing works.
that's
You're in a
it.
foreign country without cell reception. This thing works. You can actually run an AI chat model, which is pretty decent. Now, I think where this goes in the future is basically that tensor that it'll be the G5, the G6, G7, whatever, and all of this is going to be able to compute directly on your phone. You're not going to need to use the internet. You're not going to need to outsource, and you'll be able to run all of these AI models straight on your phone, edit your photos, make these automated AI translation calls, pull your phone up and just like point the camera at something and have it translate without having to use internet. That is a very cool device. And I think like basically, yeah, you get to a point where without the internet and you can run all of this stuff, it makes the phone a lot more valuable. And I think you'll see a lot more people switching from maybe like an iPhone, which has Siri delayed till 2026, because you basically just get a lot more capabilities.
Well, also privacy, right? I mean, like it's one of these
And
things where if
privacy.
you're not sending it anywhere to the cloud, anything like that, like huge. Now, my only question around that is if people know that there's a better model out there, will they use the nano model? And but that's not most of the world. Most of the world is not pushing up
Mhm.
against the boundaries of what these technologies can do. Most of the world is just like, hey, I just need a better Siri, and this allows that. Or in the case of Google, like having Gemini Nano on, I think it's an absolutely brilliant move. It's what we've been waiting for so long because there's GPT-4 models already available that you can like fit in your on your phone right now. Unbelievable. Okay, so Jaeden is now proclaiming the iPhone dead. If I heard him correctly, he's saying Apple's about to go out of business. So anybody that's sort of like, if you like Apple, guys, attack pitchforks to Jaden's door. Joking, joking. We always, every time we start to say anything that's like slightly not Apple's the best, we get crushed. Even though we use MacBooks and iPhones and we love Apple, what's going on here, folks? Listen, if you've appreciated the work that we've put into this, and if you want to really help us with the algorithm, the biggest thing here is that the more likes and ratings and reviews we get on this, the more likely it's suggested to other people, and that goes a long way for us, to be honest. Like we just do this out of the goodness of our hearts. We don't take sponsors. We don't do anything else. This is the thing we ask for. So it'd be amazing if you are open to doing that. Otherwise, we will see you on the next podcast.